Good question, Robert.
Well, I was just thinking about how when we did curtains in Houston, and remember then when we changed the set to Paper Mill Playhouse,
right?
There were changes. You know, the dimension, the proscenium dimensions were different, the floor dimensions were different, and so the set had this sort of, I think it got a little narrower or something at Paper Mill. We lost a few feet here and there, and I was wondering if, you know, when you're 6 months on the road, if it were shifting every single time, I would think it would take one performance to sort of get used to it, and then you'd be used to it.
I don't think they book this show into theaters that can't facilitate our set as it arrives. Yeah.
And the set travels, like you close in one place. The set travels, and you've got a few days before you reopen. What's the quickest turnaround?
The quickest turnaround has been like 3 days, which isn't bad at all.
Yeah.
We usually close the show on a Sunday night. We travel on Monday, and the first show is usually Wednesday night.
And do you have to retech? No, right?
You mean
every
personally?
place you go? No, well, like every theater that you go, new theater that you go into, do you have a full-on tech rehearsal again before you open that night?
No, all we do is a sound check, just a sound check. Yeah.
All right. Well, my part of interviewing you.
I know, Robert. We keep saying we're going to talk about this, and we, the two of us, and we haven't done that yet.
and how much are they paying you, Kim?
Oh no, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm sure fans of the show already know what I'm being paid, like they always did on Guiding Light. They always seem to know more about what I was being paid than I did.
She's getting paid with flying monkeys.
There you go. Yep.
That's ironically exactly what they were paying us on Guiding Light when we were working in BPAC.
I was going to say I have a lot of monkeys throw their poo at me when they're up on the cage.
It's nothing like showbiz, huh?
Yep.
Are there any real animals in that play? I don't remember.
No, there aren't.
Just a real animal stuff, right?
No real animals.
And the cast adores you, and you adore the cast, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I've made some good friends here. I mean, we're having a kind of a turnaround right now. We're losing a lot of our ensemble guys and gals who have been with the show 3 and 4 years, and so we're having, which is going to be fun again too, to have new, fresh performers coming into the show. So, so that's what it's all about.
Any talk at all about you maybe going into the Broadway production?
Well, not to my agent.
You mean outside of like the bathrooms?
Yeah, no. It's just bathroom conversation at this point.
Kim, I want to first of all thank you for writing the book.
Oh, thanks. Yes.
It was, for any Guiding Light fan, it was such a rare, just a great treat to be not only taken on the journey of your experience with being on Guiding Light and reliving some of the storylines, but just your candid take on it all, and your just your honesty. And one of the things that I wanted to mention to you that I read that just kind of struck home for me was, well, for one thing, I never knew that you were an avid golfer, and I didn't know that for years you have come to the Duke Children's, classics.
Right. You sound like you're from the Carolinas somewhere.
I am from North Carolina, and where I live is, I guess a giveaway. But I'm about 20 minutes from Duke Children's Hospital, and and so all these years I was like, I can't believe, because you were my favorite.
Oh,
female
it was right
performer.
there. You never came to the golf course?
I never came to the golf course, but and I was just and I was in your vicinity for a number of years because I worked for a children's charity, and it was a timber charity, and the money we raised went to support Duke Children's Hospital. So I, was there many times, and we got taken on the tour of the hospital, which is a beautiful facility.
Exactly.
The gentleman, it is, and the gentleman I was working for at the time had given like $1 million towards one of the wings in the children's hospital, and it was quite elaborate, but it was always so humbling to go into the NICU ward and see those tiny,
that's what brought me back every year was touring that hospital and seeing the miracles that were happening there. I mean, I played in that golf tournament enough years that I would meet kids that were in the hospital when I toured the preemie wards. And 10 years later, here they were coming up to me and saying, from what I understand, you stood over my incubator, so that always, it was always very touching to meet these kids who, survived such a traumatic birth, coming into the world with so many, hooked up to so many tubes and monitors and, you look at them and you think there's no way this little, foot-long baby is ever going to survive, and they do.
Yeah. And the one thing that always, the first time I ever toured that hospital, I'm a mother of 3 children myself, and so to go in that hospital and to see those small babies, that sit in the palm of your hand in some instances, and just, thank the good Lord that my children were healthy. I mean, not only, it would strike a chord in anyone, but for a mother particularly, I think if you're a mother and you go in there and you see that, it is just it is so eye-opening. It really, it makes you appreciate all the more that your children are healthy.
We had a few times, I think, didn't we, Kim, where we toured that hospital together?
Yeah.
There was always lots of tears. I mean,
I toured one year when I was pregnant.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And that was rough. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
I actually went back. What's it been now? 2.5, 3 years ago when I was doing Annie down there in Raleigh. I set up a day. I had a time off one day, and I went over, and I can't remember the wonderful woman's name who used to take us around.
Yeah, right.
She's still there. And she met me, and we went around room to room to room, just like we used to do during the tournament.
Right.
And it's still just complete. And the work they do there is stunning. It's absolutely stunning. You see a little baby that's barely the size of your hand, in an incubator, and they somehow manage to keep that little child alive. And it's just amazing what they do there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
say,
although I'm a Carolina fan, I'm a big, diehard Carolina fan, and if you've been to this part of the country, then you know that the Duke-Carolina rivalry is second to none. Probably one of the biggest in the country. And, of course, Michael Jordan. But we are the only, UNC is the only university that can tout that we had Michael Jordan. So, it's like, it's unbelievable. But, so we love Michael and what he means to us as far as being in North Carolina and what he went on to be.
I was involved in Michael's first tournament when they named it the Michael Jordan Celebrity Golf Classic, which took place in Greenville, North Carolina. And his first year playing pro ball, when it was called the East Carolina Celebrity Golf Classic or something for the Ronald McDonald houses, Michael gave the first year of his professional contract, he gave $200,000 to that charity, and then they named it the Michael Jordan Celebrity Golf Classic.
Yeah.
So that was he's a special person.
He really is. He's a phenomenal human being. He's done so much to give back to society. And
except he couldn't get my daughter into USC.
Oh, no.
having a letter, when when you're a Yankee and having a letter from Michael Jordan to get your daughter from New Jersey into UNC, it just didn't do it.
Oh, wow. I will never forget some years back, this is a funny story about Michael. I was down in Charlotte for a work conference and was in, the hotel there. And so I'm sitting there. We were kind of waiting to check in. And all of a sudden, here comes this gentleman. He walks right up to the desk. Well, he's on his cell phone. And he had glasses on at first. And I thought, oh, looks like Michael Jordan. And he took the glasses off, and he's just standing there. There's no entourage or nothing like you would expect. But they waited on him, and, of course, then the bellhops came, and they had 2 carts full of luggage. They're falling behind into the room. And he comes back down, and he sees me because I'm still sitting there waiting to check in. And that just goes to show you who I was in relation to him, But needless to say, I'm sitting there, and he comes back down, and he just flashes that signature, what you see in all the Hanes commercials, smile, hey.
Right.
And he goes right out the front door, gets into a black sports car and drives away. But ironically, he was in town because the Charlotte Bobcats were having their training and their scouting sessions, and he was in town for that. So that's where he stays when he's in town, apparently. Yeah. So, I was just like, well, okay. But it was really neat to see him because he's all over the place, and to have him come home to Carolina, is a rare treat for us. So we're always glad he's here. So now let's talk about Guiding Light, because you had probably every possible storyline concocted for Reva Shane that could have been concocted, and and that's not even including the number of times you died, came back on the show, and this and that. Is there a favorite storyline of all the storylines that you played?
Well, I don't know if you already asked Robert this question, because I think we'd probably answer the same way. We loved any story that had. Pardon me?
I said it goes out to both of you.
Yeah, well, we always, I know that I've always said, and I know Robert has too, that any story that involved, well, for me, Reva and the Lewis men, any story that involved me dealing with Billy, Josh, and HB was my favorite. We had a storyline that we referred to as the Cat on the Hot Tin Roof storyline, which was when Josh was in the wheelchair and Reva was married to HB and Billy was Gooper, trying to cause all kinds of problems. And that we had great memories of the time the 4 of us spent together playing out that story. So I would have to say those were my favorite times, were when Larry Gates was in rare form as H.B. Lewis.
Yes. And Larry Gates, I loved when he played H.B. because you always, it didn't matter what you were doing. You would drop what you were doing to hear what he was kind of like E.F. Hutton. When he spoke, you listened, and you couldn't, and you believed every word he said. You had no reason to discount anything he said.
Because even if it wasn't in the dialogue, he found a way to make them pearls,
Oh yeah, definitely.
He was an extraordinarily honest actor, and every single thing he said as HB would just, that's what he brought to the table, was sort of that presence, and you combine his personality with that voice that he had, that amazing, delivery that he had, and everything HB did was honest and true. But that was also who he was as an actor. So, always great working with Larry.
Yeah.
And I would agree, of course, that there was that pristine, perfect time when it was you and Jordan and Larry and Krista and Carol. And, it was like that whole time period, which I guess we're talking about the mid '80s sometime, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about
84,
sort of mid
85,
to late '80s. Yeah.
85, 86.
And I always, of course, have that image of that first Josh and Reva wedding.
Oh, yeah.
I think I've talked about this before in interviews, so I'm sorry, but, this perfect moment of Kim on the lake in the white dress, and the rowboat, and
Morgan England.
Morgan rowing the boat. I always remember the funny moment.
In his T-shirt.
and when you guys pulled up in the rowboat, Morgan typically jumped out of the boat, and I remember looking over, the wardrobe people kind of like, oh, I can't believe he just did that. He just jumped in the water. He jumps in the water to bring the boat in.
Right.
But this beautiful, beautiful shot of Kim coming across the water, and that whole day was just a stunning day. It was a great day to. It was a lot of laughter.
Yeah.
In some cases, I think for you and Larry, it was a little too much laughter.
Oh yeah, we did the pee-pee dance. We did a lot of pee-pee dances that day.
I know what you're talking about, and I'm not going to say